Hey there guys, Tom here. Welcome back to my movie channel and thank you very much for joining me for this, my spoilers review for Avengers Endgame. That's right, I said spoilers. So if you have not seen Avengers Endgame yet, do not watch this video. Go see Avengers Endgame because you need to see Avengers Endgame. Come back and watch this video once you've seen the movie. Or if you don't care about spoilers, that's fine. Feel free to stick around. Just know that we're going to be talking about all things spoilers. If you have not subscribed to this channel yet, hit that subscribe button, ring that notifications bell so that you never miss out on my take on all things movies. Now, today I'm joined once again by my two guests, Ali and James. So we're going to get into it, all things spoilers about Avengers Endgame. So, first of all, as I said in the non-spoiler review, I really like this movie. I'm not sure that I love this movie like I loved Infinity War walking out, but Endgame's a very solid movie. I enjoyed it greatly. It has a lot of geek out moments. Walking into Avengers Endgame, I wanted one thing from this movie, and I don't like people walking into movies with checklists because no matter what, they're going to end up disappointed. This movie had to do one thing for me. And James, if you wouldn't mind passing me the one thing it had to do. No? Yes. That. Avengers Endgame had to include one character in particular, Korg. And it included Korg. So I'm a very, very happy camper. Korg is in this movie. How great is Korg? Let's just 45-minute discussion on Korg. Let's go.
Korg is...
Thoughts on Korg, Ali?
Korg is literally the best character in the MCU.
He is. Yeah. He is. Korg plays a PlayStation... Korg and Meek are playing a PlayStation 4. I mean, they're playing Fortnite, right?
Yeah, they're playing Fortnite, I do believe.
Yeah, anyway.
It's either Fortnite or Overwatch.
Got that out of the way.
Pretty sure it's Fortnite.
Yeah, I
Fortnite. I think it was Fortnite. They were playing something. Anyway, Korg's in this movie and I loved it. So, that's it. I'm out. See you later. No. So, Ali, spoilers. Go. Big moments you liked.
Okay, big moments I liked?
Yeah.
Okay, it's got to be my man Cap wielding
Cap.
Thor's hammer.
But he doesn't just wield the hammer.
He does wield Stormbreaker
And then they
for
do
a moment.
the swap over?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the little one.
That moment with the hammer.
Avengers Assemble.
The moment with the hammer with Cap, all things Cap in this movie, I was on board with.
I think this is the best job they've done with Captain America in the MCU.
Really?
This is, to me, a lot of people are going to say Winter Soldier, whatever, that's fine. This, to me, is the best of Cap in the MCU for me.
I mean, I think that this movie, like, I don't know if it's what I would consider the best of Cap, but it is a greatest hits for Cap. Like, we get everything with him, you know, we get some Peggy action.
Oh, Peggy.
Yeah. We get, you know, the hammer. Friggin'...
We get Avengers Assemble.
We get Avengers Assemble, which we've been waiting for.
Since Age of Ultron, because they teased it at the end. A big moment for me is obviously when all the portals open up.
Oh yeah.
And everyone but I like that T'Challa was the first one to come back through, and that look of recognition between Cap and T'Challa, and then you have Doctor Strange come back and all the Guardians come back and Spider-Man swings in. It is like the level of epicness in that final battle is on like another level to me, and I loved every single second of that final battle. James, big standout moments, go. Anything?
Big standout moments. Let's see, Scarlet Witch on PMS.
Oh my god, Scarlet Witch with Thanos, great moment.
Yeah, too short for me though.
Yeah,
personally too short. I wish she was more murderous and kept attacking him throughout the fight. I mean, great that you have this final fight, and great that you have all the characters, which is something that most series don't do. And I understand that it's going to be extremely expensive, but come on, you could have cut out half of the second act.
She needed more of a moment with Thanos, I think.
Yeah,
you could have given another 10 minutes to the finale, and yeah, more, or just more emotional impact. You really want to sort of drive home how upset people are, because you have Infinity War, which sets this precedent for most traumatic event in history, and then 5 years have passed and people are just a little upset. And that's it.
I think that's not quite fair. I mean, it's been 5 years, people aren't just going to be walking around crying.
No, but I do see what he's saying though, where like
it's like the trauma isn't there.
Yeah. there's a lot of humor that they have in that first act, especially with Professor Hulk, which I didn't like, and Thor. And I get these characters are funny, but to me, and I know it's 5 years later, and there's something to what you're saying too, but I feel like James is kind of onto something here where it does kind of take away from it. It's like, oh, this is a serious thing that just happened, and we're just going to stand here for the first hour of this movie and tell yuck jokes, you know? Like, I don't know, there's something to that, but go on.
Like, I can understand that people would have moved on to the next segment of their lives, but having lost as many animals as I have, I also know that trauma doesn't exactly go away after 5 years either.
I don't know.
And you'd be talking about people who've lost so much of their family that there would be a few unlucky people who've lost literally everyone they've ever cared about.
Do you know what though? The one person in this movie who goes against what you're saying, Hawkeye.
Well, he's obviously traumatized.
Yeah, but like I think that to James's point, like that's the one character to me that like you really felt it more than anyone else. And we, you know, in Thor Ragnarok and in Avengers Infinity War, we saw Thor lose a hell of a lot. And I'm gonna just go straight for the head here. Drunk fat Thor. At first, I'm like, hey, this could be funny. It didn't work. Honestly, I thought that was bad. Yeah. I thought it was bad, and I thought his performance as drunk Thor was bad. And we all know that Chris Hemsworth is a great actor.
Yeah, I think he's a great comedic actor, and it's clear that they were really just hoping that he could, you know, beef this up, make it really funny. And he tried his best, I guess, but I don't think that the concept behind it works.
It worked for a little bit, like that. You know, the scene with Korg and Valkyrie and all that, like that was cool.
That's a skit, though. That's like an SNL skit. If that weren't, if he were hosting SNL and they did a skit like that, that'd be really funny. I would enjoy the heck out of it. It's not a movie Thor thing that you put in.
I think what disappoints me about that the most is that he was so funny in Ragnarok. Everything with him in Ragnarok worked. Every funny moment with him in Infinity War worked. And at least for me. In this one, though, not so much. The other thing I didn't like, at first, I got on board with it, was the Professor Hulk thing. At first, I'm like, that's a bit weird. But I understand it, and that worked for me. Any other moments we want to touch on?
Good or bad?
Good or bad.
Okay. So, I am a fan, I guess, of that last fight. And I say it with some reservation because it's never going to live up to the great fight in Infinity War.
Which fight in Infinity War?
Where everything is everything.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Pretty much the whole last act.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't quite live up to that, and I'll talk about Thanos a bit more later, but the way they use Thanos in this movie, across all of it, I was really happy with it. Like, I think it's a hard character to do after he's essentially won the day, but how they use him in this, I think, is really clever.
All of Thanos' dialogue is amazing. Like, through Infinity War to this. And what I really liked about Thanos and the way that they chose to tell this story with him is Infinity War is his movie. And this isn't. And he's kind of sidelined for the most of it. It's about the Avengers and the whole thing of them going back to previous movies. The Battle of New York. They go back to Thor 2. They go back. Like, that was cool. Let's talk about the going back to New York thing with the two Captain Americas.
I had already repressed it.
Yeah.
It's not
I saw it
awful.
coming.
Oh yeah, I figured someone was going to meet somebody, but I didn't care for the whole thing with the two Caps, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I think that's too much timeline, weirdness. I'm not up for it. Like, they should have just done, the Back to the Future 2 thing that they'd obviously kind of taken a lot of inspiration from for Act 2. They should have just said, okay, they'll pass by each other. That's fine. Don't have them meet. Don't do that. I feel like there's better ways to have used Cap in that New York sequence.
It could have been a cool fight, and like, look, as just a fight on its, if you just watching that fight in a bubble without any the rest of the movie, it's a cool scene. Yeah. With the rest of the movie around it, I don't know. I don't know that I like it. Obviously, like from a CGI point of view, with doubling Chris Evans, that was very well done. I don't know if I like it. James, you got any other moments that you did or didn't like?
Loki invalidating the events of Thor Ragnarok.
With the Tesseract.
Yes, because he escapes, and now he's going to... I have no clue.
But does it invalidate the events of Thor Ragnarok?
Kind of, yes, because he's not there anymore.
That's... See, it depends though, because now what we were talking about at lunch was he's got his own Disney Plus show coming. So I'm willing to bet that him going through the portal with the Tesseract in this movie leads directly into his Disney Plus show. It's the same thing with the Black Widow. Let's talk about the Black Widow thing. The Vormir, Black Widow, Hawkeye. Oh my God. I cried at 3 points in this movie. I cried, when did I cry? I cried at Black Widow. I cried at, Iron Man. And the beginning, the beginning where I made that really, with Thor going for the head, which was an awesome scene, by the way. I love that scene. But let's talk about this Black Widow and Hawkeye moment, because I do look. It's a beautiful scene. I thought that scene was them going to Vormir and then them fighting over who's gonna make the sacrifice play. I thought it was a very well executed scene. I'm a little bit confused why they weren't told beforehand, hey, by the way, because Nebula knew from Infinity War, hey, Thanos went to Vormir to get the Soul Stone. He came back, Gamora didn't. Nebula knew damn well something has... You can work it out. She worked it out. There had to be a trade there. But when Barton and Romanoff get to Vormir, it's a complete surprise to them. You'd think Nebula would have said something.
I actually think that Nebula wouldn't have said something. And I'll tell you why. I've said I'll tell you why a few times. Don't let me stop. I don't want to say it anymore.
No,
okay.
Tell me why.
So, I figure if she told them, they might not do it. And
the weight was also on people who were sufficiently close as well.
Yeah.
Because you had to care for them. Sorry,
I'm just saying. And, maybe they would have, we know the characters a lot more than Nebula would, but I figure she took that calculated risk of, I'm not going to tell them, and they'll have to do it.
I guess you could also make the argument that she didn't know exactly what you had to do. All she knew is that Gamora didn't come back.
Yeah,
that is true.
Nebula's not dumb
No.
So she obviously knew that he killed her sister. She'd said that. She said that he killed her sister.
Yeah.
So.
Although she wouldn't have... Because she wasn't actually there, so she wouldn't have known the exact price to pay for it. She just knew that there was a high risk someone would die.
What I'm saying is, for all she knew, Gamora could just be trapped on Vormir for, Gamora didn't necessarily have to be dead.
Yeah, but she says that...
They only knew Gamora was dead because Mantis was able to pry that information out of Thanos during their fight.
Yeah, okay, you're right, yeah.
So no, that one does make sense, although... Admittedly, Nebula wouldn't have had any way of decisively knowing exactly what killed Gamora.
Yeah, but I figure she took that risk because what was she going to do? Either tell them and they'll try to work out a way to get out of it, which they can't.
And clearly they, Black Widow and Hawkeye learned how to fly a spaceship in that 5 years because they flew there by themselves.
Apparently, spaceships are so easy to fly.
Yeah, anyone can do it. Bruce did it in Thor Ragnarok, with his 7 PhDs.
Yeah. He activated the party machine, didn't he?
Yeah, the Grandmaster uses for orgies and stuff.
Yeah, it's my birthday or something.
It's my birthday! Yeah, it's a good song. So here's something. Let's talk about Captain Marvel, because big topic of conversation for this movie. Look, I love the Captain Marvel character. Ali and I love Brie Larson. Say what you want about her. That's your opinion. Personally, for me, I love Brie Larson. I love Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. I was a big fan of the Captain Marvel movie, unlike this guy right here. But Captain Marvel in this movie, there was a theory going into Avengers Endgame that you hate everything. That there was a theory going in that a lot of people were throwing around hey, what if Captain Marvel rescues Tony Stark and Nebula? And I'm like, come on, space is a massive, massive place. Space is huge. You can't understate how huge space is. It would be a 1 in a million shot, or in a trillion shot even, that Captain Marvel is just going to stumble upon a stranded Tony Stark and a stranded Nebula. Well,
she does.
She does. And look, I understand it. You needed a way to get them back to Earth. Okay, Captain Marvel, we want to, bring Captain Marvel in. Cool, fine. I'm not going to get too mad about it. I'm just saying it is a little too convenient for me.
That one can actually be argued scientifically, because the fundamentals for finding a small object in space would also be the same that you use to survey space. They took a photo of a black hole, but the way you take a photo of a black hole is you use sophisticated technology which hones in on a specific...
So she could have detected them on a ship somewhere else.
No.
No, but I'm like wherever she was, she could have
No.
used...
Other people would have.
Yes.
But people who were independent of her and then simply directed her to the local position.
Sorry, this is one of the few...
Whether maybe they sent out a distress call.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I figured they would have, but you're still talking huge amounts of area to cover.
I tell you what, it shows how strong she is, because she was doing the Superman flying that ship back down to New York. You had a thought on that as well.
Did I?
You had a counterpoint to my argument.
Oh, yes. Well, pretty much the distress signal thing, because, look, there was not really a high chance that the Guardians would stumble across Thor in Infinity.
And that Thor specifically would land on their ship.
Thor specifically would land on their ship. So I'm not going to...
Wipers, get it off. Yeah.
So I'm not going to be too, critical of how they've chosen to introduce her. I did like that the post-credit scene for Captain Marvel was a red herring.
I would have bet this microphone on it. I would have bet everything on it. That, by the way, new microphone. I would have bet everything on it that scene, because they did it for Civil War too. The post-credit scene of Ant-Man was the scene from Civil War. And I thought, they've just taken a bit from Endgame and a very select bit and put it in the post-credit scene. But that scene, not in the movie.
Yeah, which I think is great.
They probably shot it for the movie, I think, initially. Maybe they didn't, because they must have known that Captain Marvel was going to bring Stark and Nebula back, and so she wouldn't just show up again and go, "Where's Fury?"
I think that there were alternate scenes shot, which Mark Ruffalo has confirmed, but I don't think that was one of them.
Yeah, you don't tell Ruffalo anything.
That was just promotional, and it worked.
Absolutely worked. So is there anything else anyone wants to bring up? Because I've got a few other moments that I like. Obviously, everyone coming back. Going into that final battle, I loved a moment I loved was Black Panther taking the gauntlet from Hawkeye, paying off the moment in Civil War where he says, "I'm Clint," and Black Panther says, "I don't care." And now all of a sudden, now he cares. I love that. Spider-Man and Tony Stark.
The hug.
Stark hugging him and Peter going, "This is nice." Another moment I love with Peter Parker was between him and Captain Marvel, where he's holding the gauntlet and he's like, "I need help." And, "Hey, Peter Parker, you got something for me?" Great moment. Any other? Doctor Strange?
Oh, yeah, Mr. Strange.
Yep.
Oh, on that, great return for the Chosen One.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
not Chosen One.
The Ancient One.
The Ancient One. It's been a while since I saw that movie and also can't remember.
I love that also, I love that, Bruce shows up and she goes instantly, "You're 5 years too late."
Yeah.
It's like she knows. I mean, of course she would know, but I like that. I like that just instantly her first words, "You're 5 years too early," or too late, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Too early.
Too early.
Yeah. I love Tilda Swinton as that character. She does a great job. So I was really happy to see her again. Did not expect it. Did not expect a lot of characters to show up in this movie, and was pleasantly surprised.
What are some of the other characters?
Was not expecting Robert Redford.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I would have been kicking myself if we didn't mention Robert Redford coming back as Alexander Pierce. I love that. And I love that we got to see what happens after the events of the first Avengers. After If It's All the Same to You, I'll Have That Drink Now. We see, they take take him downstairs and Pierce comes in and tries to I love that. And the scene, the throwback to Cap in the elevator from Winter Soldier and him just leaning over and going, "Hail Hydra." Now, I'm like, come on, do they really believe that Cap is Hydra? Would they just let him have it just because he said those words?
I think so.
Really?
Yeah.
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 I mean, they're part of a secret. They're they think they're part of they are part of basically a secret
cult, and they must think it's real, because how else would he know?
Yeah, exactly.
They don't know that he knows. So that's true. I just destroyed my own argument, but there you go. There you go.
And another person I was, pleasantly surprised to see was Natalie Portman for 5 seconds.
Natalie Portman as Jane, and she wanted nothing to do with the MCU after Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah, there's an argument you could make that it's really just some unused footage.
Maybe. And then Rocket chasing after her with the...
I thought that was surprising.
It was a good moment. It was a good moment.
Loki showing up, just a lot of people that were either dead or just out of the MCU generally.
And this movie really is a love letter to the entire MCU. Like, it's such a love letter. Let's talk about how people ended up and dead people and people who are still living. Tony Stark being the big one. We've talked about Black Widow. I cried. I love that scene. Tony Stark. I didn't think any of the big six were gonna bite the dust. No pun intended. Every pun intended. But, Tony Stark, the gauntlet, the stones. Oh, hang on. I can only do it with this hand. I am Iron Man. Beautiful. Beautifully done. And I honestly, I thought, oh yeah, he's injured and his face is all fucked up and his arms all He dead. And it was a beautiful goodbye, I think. Peter Parker, and then the funeral afterwards was moving. Maybe a little too long, too drawn out, but you needed it, I think, for the godfather of the MCU. So good send off for him. Who else we got to talk about?
Oh, okay.
Oh, the way that Cap's story.
Oh God, look, for those who don't know, Captain America is my favorite Avenger of the movies.
Got a good ass.
He does have a good ass.
You love America's ass.
Yeah, that's a good line. It's a good line.
It's a good joke, actually. I really like that one.
And then when he knocks himself out, it really is America's ass.
Oh, I thought that the way they handled Cap in this movie and his ending especially, I kind of expected it.
It's beautiful. It is.
But it was beautiful. Exactly what he needed and deserved.
He ends up with Peggy, and that being the final shot is great. I love seeing old man Chris Evans. Did they get Clint Eastwood? Because he looks like, if you watch that, he looks, at first when he's sitting there, I'm like, that looks like Clint Eastwood.
That is what I thought, but it couldn't be Clint Eastwood.
No, it wasn't.
Because he's not a miserable 80-year-old geezer.
Get off my lawn.
Who hates all Asians living nearby.
Yeah. But let's talk about that moment. It's a beautiful moment. It's a beautiful conversation between him and Sam Wilson. Look, I said this to you as we were leaving. Captain America is not a mantle to be passed down. I understand in the comic books, Sam becomes Captain America. I understand in the comic books, Bucky becomes it. Steve Rogers is Captain America. Is Steve Rogers is Captain America. That's it. That's the way it is. Whoever wants to use the shield can use the shield, but Sam Wilson will never be Captain America. He's now Falcon with a shield to me. That's just my opinion, but that's how it is. But I know you disagree.
I do disagree because, unlike Thor, where they did that in the comics because they're weird and ridiculous. Captain America is a name, and I think you can pass it down if you want. But I was interested to know if Bucky already knew Steve's plan.
I got that impression because Bucky says to Falcon, no, you go. Yeah. He knew it was going to happen.
And it wouldn't work for me if Bucky didn't know, because Bucky is Steve's best friend.
Yeah.
So him sending over Falcon tells me that Steve communicates.
And the vigorous fisting scene between Steve and Bucky in this movie, I thought was sensational.
Yeah. Yeah, went on a bit long. But I understand fan service.
You've got to pay it off. James, final thoughts on Captain America's end in this movie? You don't have to talk about the fisting scene.
Well, it's all about the sex scene. Let's be real. Captain America and Chris Evans were only ever brought in because they wanted to give...
I mean, clearly, Bucky loves America's ass too.
But no, it was nicely done. I do feel that a bit of the emotional impact was lost. Like, I prefer, I don't know, just MCU stuff. It's like they're not the greatest tellers of drama. I can get what they're going for, and I'm empathetic to it. But at the same time, I do prefer more complexity to it. I prefer slightly more human characters compared to what the MCU puts out.
Why are you watching superhero movies?
Because I fucking love them. I watched Thor Ragnarok. And truth be told, I don't actually watch that many movies.
I get a bit of what you're saying. The MCU's done the fake death thing a lot. So when they do it, you never really believe it. And so you do lose some of that dramaticness.
It's also how they'll try to outdo themselves continually. Which I understand
I'm with you there, yeah.
with how the movies have to develop. But I do think they've tried getting a bit too clever with it all.
Yeah.
But especially with Black Panther, don't get me started on that because
not
I
gonna
know
get
that you're
started
just
because-
going to call me a racist.
I had that opinion of Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I'm not going to get into it in the Endgame review, but I thought that movie got a little too clever for itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's not a cap on technology and the advancement and trying to outdo itself. So you can only take so many of these things before you become jaded. And I think that's what I am to this.
That sounds about right, because like I've said to many people that Endgame's going to be my final MCU. I actually don't even believe myself.
We've witnessed something special here. Ali and James finally agreeing on something, but
I've said this to many people, and I've made exceptions with myself already. Like, I'm going to see the Black Widow movie because I've been gunning for her to have a movie.
Yeah, but she dead, so...
Yeah, I've said so many times that Endgame's going to be my last MCU. I'm done with it. I would make an exception for the Black Widow movie, but...
And then she's going over exclusively to the DCEU.
Oh, fuck you. But, like, because I just think this... Genuinely, I do think this was a great ending. And I know,
absolutely.
like, I do think if they ended the movies here and said no more...
MCU's done? Perfect. With the Disney Plus series.
Yeah, which I have some mixed feelings about, but overall I'm interested.
But this gives us more of an idea. What they did with Endgame gives us more an idea of what they're going to do possibly in those series. Black Widow's obviously going to be a prequel, unless they want to retcon her death.
Which I think would be a bad idea.
It would be a bad idea. Here's something that I thought was funny. Thor ends up with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And they reference as Guardians of the Galaxy. That was a meme going around after Infinity War came out, was as Guardians of the Galaxy. And I'm like, there's no way they're going to make that joke. Well, there it is. There's the joke.
Quite a few of their jokes were based on memes, but I can't remember which ones.
I tell you something else that bothered me just a little bit. I thought it was a little too convenient and didn't make much sense. Thanos using 2014 Nebula to see the memory files of current day Nebula, and the way that was kind of done, I felt like, look, you needed a way for Thanos to find out what they were doing. That's basically my thoughts on that.
I guess it makes sense in the idea that they'd be physically on the same wavelength. They'd be using the exact same frequencies to transmit their thoughts and ideas.
Yeah.
So I guess in that sense it does make sense, but honestly I think of it more as in, well, you're kind of screwing with the universe, so the universe is going to screw you.
Similar to the Cap versus Cap thing, I just thought it was a little convenient. Like the Captain Marvel, saving Tony Stark, a little convenient.
You mention them being on the same network, but that to me brings up some more problems because it implies that Nebula is always transmitting her memories or thoughts or whatever to somewhere.
To the ship, probably.
Yeah, so that to me raises a lot of questions about the previous movies. And
I tell you what, though, I love the dynamic between Nebula and Rhodey.
yeah, I think she worked great with him and Iron Man the brief time she was with him.
Oh, at the beginning when they're playing their little game on the ship, that was great.
Can I ask you, since I know you're not a Nebula fan?
I've come around to her from Infinity War, but I haven't been a Nebula fan.
Yeah, because I think she's going to be in like the next Guardians at least.
Yeah. She's part of the Asgardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, especially since Gamora is still, not around.
Which, by the way, before you get into your question, Gamora is not. It's not the same timeline Gamora. It's a different Gamora. So now with Endgame, the way it ended, Gamora's not in love with Peter Quill. very satisfying to me because I obviously, look, you knew Gamora was going to come back. They're not going to keep Gamora dead. She's going to come back in some way or another. I was just hoping it wouldn't be a, like the Gamora from Infinity War came back as she was. But I love that, oh no, now we have a way that Gamora is back, but it's not the same Gamora, which I thought was very interesting. But go on.
Well, I was really just going to ask, if you've changed your opinion on Nebula, but you already answered that.
Yeah, my opinion on Nebula's changed. Look, I didn't like some of the convenientness of the way this movie was written, especially around her. But I like her. I didn't like her in Guardians 2. I felt like in Guardians 2 she was a bit too over the top. And a little bit in this movie too. It was a little bit of that, especially like her old self. Yeah. But I didn't mind her.
I do think that would have been intentional now that we look at the two side by side.
Yes.
So, I mean, I always liked her, and I'm a fan of Karen Gillan.
Oh, I think Karen Gillan's great. I just think some of the direction and sometimes her performance as Nebula is a bit over the top, bit of hit and miss. Here's something I really did like, was, again, that final fight. Any dialogue between Captain America and Thanos back and forth was great. I loved that Peter Parker, Captain Marvel helps him, and then he's with Valkyrie, and then like this kind of moment, and that great moment, I cannot believe I didn't think of this earlier, with all the female Avengers. You had, what's her name from Black Panther? Okoye, you had Valkyrie, Captain Marvel, Scarlet Witch, like all together. Oh my God. And cue the SJW comments. I don't give two shits. I love that moment. It was great.
What I find interesting is that people gave like Brie Larson quite a bit of shit about the comments of, oh yeah, there would be a great female Avengers. First of all, people take those comments way too seriously.
And by the way, some of those same people are some of the same people that say it's not like in the comic books. I do believe there are comic runs of just the female Avengers.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go too far into it, but there's a lot of different versions of these characters. But yeah, I find it interesting because when I heard that quote, even I was like, "Are there enough female Avengers?" There is now.
There's a lot.
We've got like I could watch a movie with all those people. They're all great actors.
There's a lot. And I another thing I just want to touch on this briefly. Oh, the other moment I cried was when Tony shows up at Avengers headquarters and hands the shield back to Cap. For some reason, that moment got me choked up. It wasn't the way I expected that moment to happen. Again, that's what this movie does, I think, really well, is it gives you the moments you wanted, not in the way you thought you wanted them. I love that moment. I don't know why I love that. I just do. I just thought it was, I love Civil War so much, so that was a good moment. But yeah, any final thoughts here? I'll just wrap this up. No post-credit scenes, by the way, surprisingly. James?
I don't really have anything else to say.
Nah, James hated this movie. Absolutely hated it. Worst movie of the year for James.
Definitely. Much worse than Night School.
Yeah,
which worse. I know that you love.
The Snowman.
And that you're going to watch again.
Love it. I think James liked this movie. I really, I think you did like this movie, didn't you?
No shit,
Yeah,
Sherlock.
of course you like this movie. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Ali, final thoughts? I had something else I was going to bring up, but I completely forgot what it was.
The mocap performance of Josh Brolin as Thanos.
Oh,
still
Thanos.
Fantastic. Still fantastic. Obviously, they were filmed back to back, so there wasn't going to be a huge dip. But the heartbroken look on his face when he realized that he is well and truly lost was worth seeing the movie. Like, was worth the 3 hours. Like, that moment on his face where all his armies disappear.
And he's realizing, and he's finally feeling what the Avengers must have felt. And you know what else? Another thing quickly that I loved was the fact that, when they're going back through the MCU, honestly, I didn't expect like Hank Pym to show up. I thought probably Howard Stark is a given. I love that moment between the scenes between Tony Stark and Howard Stark in the past. That was really sweet. When he hugs him, like, thank you for everything you've done for the country. Thank you for everything you've done for the country. I love that. Look, overall, I really like Avengers Endgame. I'm going to have to see it again to really solidify my thoughts on the film. So don't hold me to these opinions. They may change, as opinions have want to do. But I really like Avengers Endgame. I think Avengers Infinity War overall is the better movie. This had the better nerdgasm kind of moments. James, final thoughts on Avengers Endgame. I already said final thoughts 10 minutes ago, but here we go. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Good movie. Go see it.
That's it. James hated it. Go on. Your turn, Ali.
It is emphatically the best performance Scarlett Johansson has given as Black Widow.
And the best performance Jeremy Renner has ever given as Hawkeye.
We now have an appropriate opening to the events of Wind River.
Yeah, and you had the scene at the end with Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch. So you had your Wind River reunion. James and I love Wind River, by the way. So I think that's going to wrap it up. If there's any moment we didn't talk about, I'm sure we're going to be kicking ourselves afterwards. But that's it. I'm going to call it. Thank you very much for watching this Avengers Endgame spoilers discussion. Make sure you jump down in the comment section below and tell us what you thought of Avengers Endgame. This is the spoiler discussion. Feel free to leave your spoilery comments in the comment section right down below. My name is Tom. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, ring that notifications bell so you never miss out on my take on all things movies. Thank you very much for Ali and James for joining me for this review. And we will see you guys next time.